They told you to be careful who you sleep with, but not why. They warned you about diseases, unwanted pregnancies, and public shame, but they never told you the deeper truth, that every act of unguarded desire, every moment of collapsed discipline, is not just a loss of control, it is a theft of power. Power that could have been transformed, power that could have been wielded, power that could have become legacy. There is an ancient fire that burns at the root of every man's ambition, a hunger deeper than food, a thirst that no water can quench. It is sexual energy, primal, wild, divine. It builds nations and destroys kings. It whispers in the silence of the night and roars behind every career move that looks like genius, but was really just instinct transmuted. You've felt it, haven't you? That pull, that ache in your body and your soul is not just lust, it's potential. And every time you waste it, chasing temporary pleasure, bowing to the anima inside you, collapsing into fantasies that were meant to test you, not guide you, you become smaller, weaker, more forgettable. But what if you didn't collapse? What if you didn't chase her? What if, like Queen Elizabeth or Queen Victoria, you learn to flirt with the world without ever surrendering to it, to radiate allure but never give yourself away, to stand in your own gravity so fully that others orbit you and not the other way around? Because the truth is, the same energy that makes men fall is the same energy that, when mastered, makes them rise. The question is not whether you have the energy, the question is whether you have the discipline to direct it. It always begins innocently. A glance, a curve, a voice that stirs something you thought was buried. You tell yourself it's harmless, just attraction, just chemistry, but deep inside a door creaks open, and behind that door lives a dream you've carried since boyhood. The fantasy of the perfect woman, not flesh and blood but symbol, a goddess stitched together from memory and myth, mother and muse, porn and poetry. And you project her onto whoever walks by. You see a stranger and forget yourself. You hand her the pen and let her rewrite your story. You twist and perform and pretend, just to be seen, just to be chosen. Because somewhere along the way you learned to measure your worth by a woman's gaze, not your own reflection. This is the anima trap. Jung warned us. He said, the anima, the internal feminine, is not a woman. She is an archetype, a mirror, a shadow. And when we do not recognize her inside us, we mistake her for someone outside us. We fall in love with our own disowned longing, dress it in heels and lipstick, and call it destiny. This is how kings fall, not from lack of strength, but from lack of inner sight. You chase her not because you want her, but because you are chasing yourself. The part of you you've exiled, the tender, the poetic, the intuitive, the unguarded. But here's the catch. You can never catch her out there, because she was never out there to begin with, and so the cycle begins. You flirt, you impress, you seduce, you give your time, your energy, your presence, hoping she will give you something back. But it's never enough, because what you're really craving is not her body, but your own wholeness. And every time you give in, every time you collapse into her gravity, you delay your own becoming. Because a man who cannot contain his sexual energy will always be a servant to someone else's desire. He will chase lovers instead of vision. He will perform instead of build. He will conquer women but never himself. And at night, when the room grows quiet and the illusions dissolve, he will realize something terrifying. He has never truly belonged to himself. Carl Jung said that the first half of a man's life is spent chasing his projections, and the second half is spent reclaiming them. And among all projections, none is more seductive, more dangerous than the anima. The anima is not a person, she is a symbol, the living embodiment of everything a man has rejected in himself and longs to recover through others. She is mystery, beauty, chaos, tenderness, intuition, emotion, allure. When undeveloped, she hijacks the psyche. She doesn't whisper, she sings, she enchants. She makes you believe that the woman in front of you is the key to everything you've ever longed for. But she is not. She's only showing you what is unloved in you. She appears in dreams, in art, in obsession, in the woman you can't forget, in the one you thought was the one. But the truth is, she is a fragment of your inner world, seeking reunion. And until you recognize her, you'll continue to see her in the eyes of strangers and call it fate. This is why so many ambitious men derail their careers for women who do not love them. Not because the women are wicked, but because the men are unconscious. They think they are choosing love. What they are actually choosing is a mirror. Sexual energy is raw psychic fire. Jung called it libido, not merely in the Freudian sense of lust, but in the broader sense of vital life force. It is the river of creation itself. The same energy that fuels art, ambition, innovation, rebellion, empire. And when a man wastes it, when he spills it carelessly in shallow conquest, or abandons it to the chase of yet another muse, he is not just losing energy, he is losing clarity, vision, depth. He is scattering the very fuel that was meant to lift him beyond the ordinary. Think of Tesla, who swore off women entirely to focus on the current of energy and light. Think of Da Vinci, who transmuted his fascination with the feminine into paintings that still seduce the soul centuries later. Even Freud, controversial as he was, believed that every great accomplishment was born of sublimated libido. That the same urge that makes men chase is the urge that makes them build. So why waste it? Why spend your divine creative force begging to be seen by women who don't even see themselves? Every time you collapse into lust, you leak power. Every time you chase the anima outside you, you delay the integration that could make you whole. You were not meant to kneel before beauty. You were meant to embody it, to become the kind of man who no longer needs seduction, because his very presence radiates depth. And paradoxically, it is that presence, that self-possessed silence, that dignified containment that draws others in. Just like Queen Victoria, the one who flirted with the world, made them all guess, but gave herself to no one, not because she was cold, but because she was sovereign. She understood that mystery was power, and power was never to be thrown at the feet of longing. To master your sexual energy is not to repress it, it is to reclaim it. To take that fire and turn it inward, to light your own path instead of someone else's fantasy. At some point, the chase becomes exhausting. You realize no amount of intimacy can fill the void of disconnection from self. No number of lovers can complete a man who hasn't faced the part of himself he keeps projecting onto them. The high fades, the novelty dies, and all that remains is the ache, the hollow silence that follows every pleasure that wasn't born of presence. But here is the secret they don't teach you in schools or locker rooms or boardrooms. You can stop running. You can stop chasing the anima in others and begin integrating her within. You begin this not by swearing off women, but by confronting what you sought from them. You sit with the ache. You meet the part of you that longs to be held, seen, adored. And instead of outsourcing that need, you learn to become the one who offers it, not to others, but to yourself. This is not weakness. This is initiation. The man who integrates his anima doesn't become less masculine, he becomes dangerous, because now he no longer seeks permission to create. He no longer needs applause to act. He no longer confuses flattery for love or lust for validation. he becomes whole. He no longer needs to flirt with the world to be noticed. The world begins to flirt with him. Not because he is trying, but because he is being. The reversal begins when you understand that your sexual energy was never meant to orbit another's approval. It was meant to be channeled, focused like a beam through the prism of your calling, your career, your craft, your mission. These are not distractions from desire. They are the structures desire was meant to inhabit. The architect becomes magnetic because he is building something beyond himself. The leader becomes attractive not because he performs masculinity, but because he no longer performs at all. There is a stillness to the man who has integrated his feminine, a calm that unsettles the chaotic, a groundedness that draws attention without asking for it. He knows who he is, and he knows what he holds. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing, they come, not because you pursued them, but because you pursued purpose. You become the flame, they become the moth. But you don't burn for them anymore, you burn for what is eternal. This is how you use your sexual energy to grow your career, not by manipulating others, but by mastering yourself. By becoming the kind of man who cannot be seduced by anything that would make him betray his path. By making every ounce of your energy serve something greater than impulse. Because your discipline is not a cage, it is a channel. And once you learn to flow it upward instead of outward, you rise. Most men will never know what they could have built, because they traded their empire for a moment of escape. Because they mistook hunger for love, projection for truth, seduction for destiny. And so they spend their lives in orbit, around women, around fantasies, around dopamine, never realizing that they were always meant to be the sun. But you who are listening now, you have felt the hollowness after pleasure. You have woken up beside someone and still felt alone. You have chased and conquered and won, only to realize that the real war was always within. You've glimpsed the edge of your own power, and now you are being asked to choose. Not between celibacy and lust, not between love and career, but between leakage and legacy. Between chasing someone else's light and becoming your own. Because you don't have to give yourself away to be loved. You don't have to shrink to feel safe. You don't have to twist yourself into something desirable. You only have to return to the one place you've been avoiding, yourself. And when you do, when you finally stop collapsing into every magnetic glance, every breathy compliment, every fantasy disguised as fate, when you stand tall in your own soul, unmoved by chaos, undistracted by beauty, when you redirect your desire inward and build something holy out of it, the world won't just notice, it will remember. Because the man who learns to hold his energy becomes unforgettable. Not because of how many people he's been with, but because of how fully he belongs to himself.